Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Marsh and I am the Vice President of Pineapple Support in the UK. We provide mental health resources for adult industry performers and sex workers. Should you wish to know more about my Pineapple Support, please feel free to contact me separately. However, at the moment, I'd like to thank you for attending our wellness stage. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Nicki Line, one of our loved and valued therapists. Nicki is a licensed mental health therapist from Tampa, Florida. And we're providing you information on using the 3 C's and empowerment dynamic for better relationships. So over to you, Nicki, and I hope you all enjoy.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate the introduction. So welcome to the using the 3 C's and the empowerment dynamic to better your relationships. Trying to get my slide to work. Just a quick disclaimer. Anything that I say on here is not an attack on monogamy, polyamory, religion, sexual orientation, or any relationship orientation. It's just meant to inform others of the studies of human relationships. Any cases that I mention are particular case studies, so names, dates, identifying information have all been changed with the consent of the individuals involved in the case. So I speak geek and nerd, so a lot of song lyrics and movie quotes. So some I do know from Britain and some from the UK. I realize this is an international platform and it may not translate, but I'll try to do as best that I can. I also use foul language from time to time. You've been warned. If you're offended by it, I apologize in advance. Sometimes it just slips out, but I will try. So the whole I love me slide, so you kind of know who I am. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I'm also an associate professional counselor in the state of Georgia, board certified sex therapist, clinical sexologist. I help run Kink Aware Therapist Certification Institute, as well as I'm the co-creator of the HEART program, which is what we're going over a little bit of today. My co-therapist, Michael Holler, and Dr. Patty Evans and I created this program to help individuals in all types of relationships to have more successful relationships. I'm one of the directors of the International Academy of Collaborating Coaches and Counselors and Educators, sex positive advocate, and as Kelly mentioned, I'm a therapist and educator at Pineapple Support. So we're going to get right into it because it's a lot of information that I'm going to be throwing at you really fast because this is meant to be like a 3-hour plus presentation. So if you have any questions, I don't know how I can see those. But if you do, I'm happy to answer them if I can somehow see them. Is that possible, Kelly?
I'm not too sure. I'll double check with Dennis.
Okay. So we'll get right into it. So the value of self and valuing who you are. I'm also, one of my side hustles is I'm an artist. I'm a sculptor, and this is actually one of my pieces on the screen. When I first started out doing art, I didn't really understand the value of it because like who would want to buy anything that I make, right? I thought it would be like crap. Like it's just my thing, here we go. And then I started researching like how to actually price your time because artists price things differently than, let's say, like a retailer. It's what do you feel your time is worth? And you divide it up into 15 increments of time of your making, plus also the materials that you're using into the product for me to get the price. So I started to understand the value of my art, and it's a price that I'm putting on a piece of my soul that I'm giving to somebody, either as a gift or if I'm selling it. This is a piece of me, and it's the same thing in relationships. You are bringing yourself to any relationship, whether it's romantic, business, platonic. You're showing up. You're giving the gift of who you are to this relationship. So it's really important that you value yourself. Okay, again, this is where the geek comes in. Game of Thrones. So if you don't know, Game of Thrones is like this big, like medieval fantasy saga where Queen Daenerys, she's the one on the left. She's looking to reconquer her homeworld. And Tyrion Lannister, who's on the right, he's from the world that she's trying to conquer. And he knows a lot about people. He's really good at human relationships and how to best predict they're going to act. But he wants to have this political alliance with Daenerys. So when he comes to her in this arena, she's like, who the hell are you? And he's like, well, I'm Tyrion Lannister. I'm the gift for you. I'm going to gift you how I know how to deal with some of these enemies that you have back in Westeros. So he is actually telling her, this is what I'm going to give you in the relationship. He's going to give transparency. For the most part, of course, it is a drama, so. But in a relationship, you do want to bring transparency. And this is part of one of the first C's, which is choice. So with the choice, you have to be transparent and vulnerable with individuals that you're getting in a relationship with. They need to know who they're getting into bed with, so to speak. They don't want to bait and switch like, oh yeah, I'm totally into watching Pokemon. And then as soon as, a couple months, the honeymoon period's over, they're like, I actually hate all anime and I just did that so we could get together. Because it happens, we want to be liked. But then you take away their choice. Another big thing, at least in the US, it was a big one that was blind date or love at first sight. Where people came together, they didn't really know each other. And I forgot which particular relationship it was. This guy was saying that he's bisexual, but he wasn't going to tell his fiance that until later on in the relationship. That took away her choice. She didn't have the choice of saying, that's an issue for me. However, I think I'm going to try to work it out. But she knew up front. That's the same thing with anything in a relationship. You're upfront about it. You have to be transparent and vulnerable, or you take away your potential partner or partner's choice of being with you. Because they're thinking you're one thing, and you give them something else, and they're like, well, I didn't choose that. This is why a lot of people get angry later on in their relationships when someone just drops a bomb on them. You're like, you didn't tell me that, for one, that you had kids, or maybe you'd been married before, or you have a different religious choice. You took that away from them. And that's not fair. They have to be able to choose you for who you are. And that's part of knowing who you are and giving self-love, saying, you know what? I'm really into this. If I like eating pineapple, I'm going to tell them I like eating pineapple. I'm not going to tell them, hey, no, I don't think I like it. And just keep going. But secretly you do. And with that, we go into consent. Because they're going to consent to be with you, whatever you're bringing up. Consent isn't just sexy, it's mandatory. So when you're entering into a relationship, there is no yes without a no. There has to be the ability to say, no, I don't really want that. That's not my thing. And if you take away the no, and I know this could be a touchy subject, just like with sexual consent. If you take away no, what do we call that? We call that sexual assault or rape. And it's not okay. I don't know if anybody agrees that that's okay. But consent is freely given. It can be reversible. So you have the yes and the no. It's informed. So that goes back to the choice and transparency and vulnerability. They know what they're getting into. They know what they're saying yes to. And it's an enthusiastic, like, oh yeah, there's an actual yes. It's not, well, I'm not sure. And it's also specific. we're going to get into contracts as well. Many of the relationship contracts I negotiate with my clients, and this is like vanilla clients and lifestyle clients. Vanilla for us is anything that's considered norm. So there is no layer of power exchange or kink in there. It's just persons getting together, creating a relationship. We have contracts for that too. And it's very specific, excuse me, about how we're going to do. If sex is an expectation, we talk about that. If you expect your wife or your husband or your partner to make you dinner every day, okay, we put that in the contract. So it's there and it's understood. Because sometimes whenever when we put a ring on it, expectations change. For some reason, it just happens. People who have been living together for years, even decades, as soon as you say, I do, and you put a ring on it, it changes. The expectations magically change for whatever reason. So this is why marriage counseling is important, premarital counseling. And when you start to get into a relationship, having counseling as well, if those conversations are really tough to have, so you can start talking. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Yay, Florida pollen.
I was just going to quickly say for you, Nicki, supposedly you can get questions and chat on the virtual retreat site. So separately, maybe after this, what we can do is refer you to there so you can have a look and see if anyone's got any questions independently.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Dennis.
That's okay.
So it's like the freely given with marriage and expectations. Sorry, I'm getting my train back on the track after I derailed it for a second. So consent is very important. And I actually have a video that I like to show my clients as well as other people. If you've seen Consent to Tea, it's really funny and it's cute. If you haven't, you get to see it now. It's only a couple minutes. And I would add also relationships. Consent is everything, not only with sexual relationships, but any relationship. Being able to say yes when there is also a no. And with that, we're going back to, the choice, the consent, and you have to be able to know what you're giving to the table. Being able to say, hey, I'm showing up and this is what you're consenting to. What gifts are you bringing? If I'm able to love myself and say, hey, this is a gift, the other person's going to treat it as such. So Doctor Who, this is later on, this is the 9th Doctor. I actually love David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, better, but this particular one is awesome. Doctor Who takes Rose, his companion, to this big gala in the sky, and he had to give a gift. This one tree person was like, here's a cutting of my grandfather. And he's like, yeah, okay, crap. Oh, here's the air from my lungs. It's like, how intimate. And of course, it's Doctor Who. He has the innuendo in there. And he understands the value of something that just his air is valuable. If you've ever watched Doctor Who, the Doctor can be kind of arrogant from time to time. Doesn't matter which one he's in, or she now. They understand the gift that they give to the world and to the universe. And that's important for you to understand too when you're in a relationship. What are you going to give them? Because if you understand your value, you're going to be a better partner. You're going to be a better lover. You're going to be a better friend, because you know what you're giving to them and also what you're going to deserve in return. You're not going to let people walk all over you either. And along with this is going to be the common emotion, jealousy. And I'll tell you how it fits in, because it does seem kind of off with this slide, because it has to deal with insecurity. So knowing your gifts, you're also going to have to know your faults as well. And jealousy is a common emotion that happens. But what jealousy is, I usually have a lot of audience participation with this. So I'm like, hey, what do you think jealousy is? What do you think it is? So to translate to this arena, jealousy for us, at least for heart, when we're giving this, is I am not good enough to be with you. This is something that I want to, but I feel like I'm not good enough to have the same connection with you. And we see that a lot with individuals who have other friendships, or if you're polyamorous, you have other sexual and or romantic relationships. So that comes up too. I'm jealous. Even in the business arena, you might be jealous of another business contact because you don't feel like you're offering enough to the table. Just know that you probably are offering that to the table. You have to talk and have that open line of communication with everybody. That goes with the choice, the consent, all the way into contracts. Like, this is what I'm bringing to you, and knowing that you are good enough. And sometimes I get, well, I'm being selfish if I'm like, hey, I deserve this, or I would like this, and I can bring this to the table. There's a big difference in being selfish and self-full. Because in this insecurities, you're going to need to do self-care, because that's what's going to help you realize your worth. Selfishness is putting your wants above somebody else's needs. Self-care is putting your needs above somebody else's wants. Like yesterday, I took time off of work because I was not going to be able to be emotionally present with my clients. And that's what they come to see me for, right? Is for me to be able to be present and to help build that connection and rapport. Because no matter what they tell you in a lot of the therapy books or any of the self-help books, it's going to be the relationship with your therapist that's going to help you heal as much as the work that you do outside of the room. So if I can't show up for that relationship, just like if you can't show up for your romantic friendships or anything, it's not going to help. it might actually put a damper in it. So it's okay to say, you know what? I'm going to take a night off. I had a client ask me, I told them that I was going to do this, X, Y, and Z, but I don't really want to. It's like, then don't. Call them and say, hey, I used up all my spoons the night before, and I'm really sorry. I'll try to make it up to you. I'll try to make a repair, but right now I need to recharge my battery. Especially if you're an introvert, you're gonna need to recharge that battery. Extroverts usually recharge with people. Introverts usually charge away from people. I'm an introvert. I am okay with being like, no, I'm not doing that today. It's a lot of spoons. Like even showing up for a conference, is it like virtual conference or in-person conference? I think I like virtual better because I don't feel like I have to perform as much as I do as I would in front of a live audience. So again, self-care, be self-full. It's not being selfish. So relationships are going to be a lot of work up front. If anybody plays Dungeons and Dragons or has heard of Dungeons and Dragons, again, I told you, I speak a lot of geek and nerd. If you understand what a dungeon master does, they're the ones that run the campaign. They have to write the campaign. They have to know what all the roles are going to end up being and any like multiple of choices that are going to happen. And some of them make these big elaborate worlds now. Like if you ever see Dwarven Forge or some of the things online, they make these big elaborate dioramas for people to like go into. So that's a shit ton of work that they're doing. And just like relationships, it's going to be a lot of work up front because you're getting to know each other. You're building trust. And that's with the choice and consent. You're building the trust. So you can start building the commitment. And in that, the Gottman Magic 6 hours a week plays in. This is when you're greeting each other in the morning or when you meet each other. So meetings and greetings, that can be you hug, you kiss, you shake hands, you exchange pleasantries. That is a ritual. Same thing with partings when you leave each other. Say, I love you or have a good day. It doesn't matter if they're going to the grocery store or if they're going to work, or right now with this wonderful pandemic that we've all been in, if they're going to the, bathroom or going for a walk. It's a parting. And then you sit down for 20 minutes a day and you talk about the relationship. See what's going on, see how their day was, you're engaged. Not like, do you think that this is working? That's a separate conversation. But the 20 minutes a day is more of the, I really want to know about you. I want to be interested in you and how your day was. Even if you just sat down and read a book all day, tell me about the book. That shows the other person you're invested in them, that you're wanting to hear about them and know about them. And then you have what we call like the coming together campaign meeting. So that's once a week. You sit down for an hour or less. More if you're in a polyamorous relationship, and it might be more than once a week. Sometimes that happens. The more people you add, the more time this is going to spend. This is when they talk about polysaturation, because at some point you can't physically, time is finite. Love is infinite, time is finite. So working these things in. So you have an hour a week where you're talking about how the relationship, if something needs to be tweaked or worked on, or maybe there was a lot of anger that popped up. I had one of these meetings yesterday with my partner, like, hey, this is what I'm liking and not liking. Maybe this needs to work on it. We need to work on this. And you also have a date night every week for at least an hour or two where you're just enjoying each other's company. You're not talking about, is this working or not? But you're physically going out or staying in, like having a picnic in front of the television and just being with each other. Yes, Netflix and chill can be love mapping and connection and quality time. if you're talking about what's going on in the show. Like, hey, do you think Daenerys is going to turn crazy and burn everything down? Well, guess what? You're right, she did. Spoiler, sorry if you haven't seen it. But it's a lot of prep in the beginning. And then we start moving into the other parts of the relationship with Locus of Control. We worry a lot about shit that we can't control, people. We really do. We worry about if whatever government is going to do this or that. We worry about if our neighbor is going to do this on the lawn, or we try to control another person in a relationship. Guess what? You can't. Just like in my therapeutic relationships, I can't make my client do shit. I can't. I would like them to do things. I wish I could like physically manipulate them and go, we're going to do this now. But no, it doesn't work. They have to make the choice to do the work. And sometimes my clients will say, well, I'm worried about what my mom says or my dad says or my partner or whomever. And then I sit there and go, can you control them? Well, no. What can you control? How I react? Like you're asking me like it's a question. Yes, that's all you can control is how you react in your behaviors. So with that, I like to do this little circle diagram that I have up here with them. And this is actually an exercise that I do with my clients. And you can do it too. So if you have an issue, you put the issue big up top and go, what can you control in this issue? Could be my thoughts. If I say, this person is I'm trying really hard not to cuss. This person is a jerk. I have lots of colorful language. I could keep my mouth shut, whatever. What are things I can influence? Well, I can maybe influence some things. Like a decision, I can put my input into a decision. Things I can't control or influence. I can't control somebody else. I can't control their reactions. I can just control me and what I do. Like I controlled of how I looked today. I can control what you guys see back here. This is my office, by the way. So it's really important. And this does go back to relationships when you're just like, I just wish I could get my partner to do this thing. You cannot change your partners. You can't do it. You don't fall in love with potential. I know I had a bad habit of doing that. I was like, oh my gosh, they have all these great ideas. They could do these things. And then I fall in love with that. People are not 4-H projects. I had this magnet that I thought was the coolest thing when I was younger. It had like this old pinup girl smoking a cigarette going, she treated boys like they were 4-H projects. Later, I realized how poisonous that magnet really was and is. People are not projects. They are who they are, and they're going to be who they're going to be. You see what is in front of you, what they're presenting you with the choice, and that's what you're consenting to in the relationship. You're not consenting to the possibility. You're not consenting to the potential. You're consenting to what is right there in front of you. And you can't control them. You can give advice or you can give suggestions. You can't control them. And this other, I forgot the word, graphic that's on the left, it has to deal with some of the transactional analysis stuff we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. It does have to do with anxiety and fear versus a passion outcome. So that's the dreaded drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic, which both of these were by David Emerald, who built off Cartman's work, who built off Eric Burns. So again, things that you can control and influence. So this is my cat, Dark Prince Harry. You may see him, this is like his zoom time where he runs around and acts crazy. He's also TikTok famous, if you want to look him up. Just look up Dark Prince Harry. Harry spelled like hair. But Prince likes anything that is food. And I'll get to the point of the story. Anything that he deems as food, which is pretty much anything people food orientated. And there's only certain things he can have. And every once in a while, I like to relax and unwind with valerian tea, or valerian root tea, which is actually a sedative for humans and cats. So when I make a cup of tea, sometimes the cup overflows and some of it goes on the saucer. So I let Prince have some of the tea from the saucer. And it's a great metaphor for life. When we go back to the self-fullness and the self-care, you don't give from your cup. Don't. Because if you do, you're going to drain yourself and you don't have any for you. You give from your saucer. When your cup runneth over, you give from that. And trust me, you're going to be happier. You're going to be more content, and your relationships are going to be more content. Because you're not giving all of yourself and you're feeling drained. This happens when we start to get into a codependent relationship, which is part of the transactional analysis and the drama triangle. So again, yay, Prince, he's wonderful, he's cute. And we learn how to do these codependent relationships from our damaged templates. We don't escape childhood unscathed. None of us do. There was always one thing that probably sticks out to us, if not more. And we bring those into our marriage contracts, into our relationship contracts. But it's sneaky because it's subconscious. It's like right under the surface. So with these damaged templates, we start to play in all these roles that I have on the triangle. So the Prince that I put up there, Prince Philip, he is the enabler and rescuer. Older Disney cartoons are really good at doing codependent relationships, by the way. If you watch them, you'll see them with new eyes. Because the Prince is usually like a flat, one-dimensional character. They're getting better now. I will say they are doing better now. But the Prince was always like the savior, rescuer. I'm going to make sure everything turns out right. He didn't even ask the princess if she wanted help. He just assumed. And so you have Sleeping Beauty or Aurora, who's the victim here. It's the poor, poor, pitiful me. And Maleficent is seen as the persecutor. You know, don't you see what I've done for you? I've done all these things, which is actually explained a little bit more now in the Maleficent movies. If you see her past, codependency is very much prevalent in those particular films. But these damaged templates come to us. Sometimes our family is too enmeshed. When we don't know our own feelings and thoughts, we can't distinguish them from other people's. We take them on. Sometimes people think that they're empaths. See, told you, Harry, Prince, he has made an appearance. As if he knew psychically this is what was going to happen. Hopefully he doesn't do the dance around me where you're going to see cat butt. That's how he says hi. But getting back to the enmeshed, one person speaks for everyone. Thank you, Prince. Thank you. And there was very little individual privacy. Like individual privacy was impossible in enmeshed households. And there isn't a whole lot of ambitions beyond the family disloyalty. Like you can't see beyond what the family wants you to do. You don't really have a whole lot of individual thoughts. Versus being too differentiated or too detached from each other is there's no unifying dreams. There's no unifying message. There's little feelings of belonging. Feelings don't exist. You know, you're probably constantly told, no, your feelings are wrong. Both of these, you're probably told, no, don't feel that way. Or they're invalidated. And it's very minimal contact. And these are on the two sides of the spectrum. There, you can have them in between. But you bring these damaged templates into you with a relationship, whether you know it or not. If you've done a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness and self-analysis, you know your shit. You know what you're bringing into it. When I start having anxiety or issues and my partner wants to fix it, like, no, stop. This is my shit. It's not for you to fix. I have to handle my own stuff. Other people are not responsible for your triggers. They're not responsible for things that come up. You're responsible for handling them and understanding what's going on. Even if that means that you leave a relationship for a different one, you're responsible for handling those. And at least in America, this goes with the codependency, and I'm sure this translates to other countries too, because it's just my frame of reference. We have a lot of media, a lot of propaganda that says love conquers all. Guess what? It doesn't. And I know this is going to be a controversial statement. I don't believe true love exists. Neither does unconditional love. They don't exist. It comes with conditions. And it could be a condition that's way far out there, and it's a condition. Like, I can't love you if, you kill somebody. Or if you kill somebody close to me, it ain't going to work. I can't be attached to you. Or some people, if you eat meat, that's not going to work for me. Or if you have to come before my career, that's probably not going to work for me. Love does not conquer all. Understanding, transparency, and vulnerability will help you conquer what's going on. And that doesn't always mean that people stay together. Sometimes that means the best thing is we're friends, or maybe our relationship isn't going to work that way. And here are some stats on marriages and relationships. This is why it's important for you to bring the transparency and vulnerability, because this stuff happens. Most marriages end roughly around the 7-year mark. Your contract that you have with somebody needs to be updated every 5 to 7 years, because guess what? You change. Your partner's going to change. You learn new things. The majority of relationships come to therapy way too late. Like, it's already dead. So we're doing an autopsy. All the 5 horsemen for Gottman are present, which is defensiveness, contempt, criticism, and stonewalling. And when all 4 of those are present, you get belligerence, which I like to say is a unicorn with a chainsaw and a Jason mask. It's just going to cut the shit out of it. It kills it. So instead of like fixing your marriage, we're going to have to do an autopsy of what went wrong. And then maybe once we've scorched the earth, we can start to make things grow from there. But we got to get all that stuff. We have to take all the debris out of the wound for it to heal right. And that's going to be pretty painful. And a lot of people can't handle that. We get to that part in some therapies that I do, and it's just like, I can't get past this. And if you can't, okay, I get it. There was probably a lot of things there that now it took away your choice because you didn't know that's what you were getting into. You didn't consent to this. Relationship contracts need to be reevaluated every 6 to 11 years. So I say every year. I like to do a little self-disclosure. I'm pagan, so I like hand fastings. And part of that culture with hand fasting is a year and a day. You get together. Okay, we agree that we're going to stick with each other for a year and a day. Or as long as the love lasts. I hate the death do you part vow. It's as long as the love is there and as long as, we can work stuff out, that's awesome. So after a year and a day, you're like, is this still working? We have this big State of the Union meeting. Is this working? Is this working? Okay, cool. Then we'll renew it for another year and a day. If not, then we're going to do a hand parting and say, what, it was fun. I learned a lot of lessons. We're just not meant for each other. My personal opinion is I don't believe in marriage anymore. I've been married twice. And I've learned from both of them. And I learned that I don't like the institution of marriage. I do like relationships. I don't like the institution of marriage because, again, all the expectations for some reason become weird for me. So I know that about myself. And if you're in a polyamorous relationship, you're probably going to need to do this 2 or more times a year. Because, again, we have a lot of other moving parts. Different relationships. Because with just one relationship, I have to deal with 3 separate things. I have to deal with person A, person B, and the relationship. Can you imagine adding multiple people? All of a sudden, now the relationships get exponentially greater. So you have a lot of moving parts in there. So you have to reevaluate that often. So we have a lot of examples of contracts for heart. We have it on the Self-Soothe Me sites, and this is where I think kink folks have a leg up on vanilla individuals. Again, vanilla being non-kinky people. Because they actually most of them write their contracts down. And we have a bunch of examples of contracts if you'd like to look at them on these particular sites. Of what are their rituals going to be? What are certain things that we do for repair? Repair is what do you do after a conflict? How do we heal after this? Because guess what? Your apology language is a lot different than mine, probably. And the apology language is done by Gary Chapman as well. For love languages, those are 2 things that I profess that people need to know. So you know how your partner receives love, and you know how they receive apologies or repair. Again, some people like gifts, some people like words of affirmation, some people like quality time, touch, acts of service. If you're speaking a different language than your partner, there's going to be mistranslation. They could be showing you love and you don't have any idea because they're not speaking your language. So this is part of the contract of either writing it down or verbally saying, this is what we have. And this is what we build our contracts on, is a basic commitment agreement. Like, I'm committed to you for X amount of time. I apologize. Prince thinks now is playtime. So the crunchy noise you hear, he's playing with his toy fish. That's his favorite toy. So I apologize for the crinkle crinkle in the background. So we deal with the basic commitment agreement, the general expectations of partners. Remember, this is part of the choice. If you're expecting sex every night, you need to tell your partner that. If that's how you experience love and belonging, is sex and physical touch, that needs to be known to your partner. And that's part of building the love maps. Love mapping is when you know the ins and outs of anybody you're in a relationship with. My business partners, Michael Holler and Dr. Evans, we build love maps on business relationships. I know what they do in business. I know what they do with their partners for a reasonable amount. I know what their love languages are. Michael's is, you have to give him admiration. You have to give him pets. Dr. Evans, she's very service oriented and gift oriented. So that's how I show my appreciation for her, is doing things for her or giving certain gifts that she likes. And a gift doesn't mean I go out and buy like a Versace bag. It could be I make her a piece of art or I gift her something for a website. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of money. But this is about building love maps. Like, a weird thing that you can ask your partner is, what's your favorite tree and why? You may not know that answer. Shared fondness and admiration. So this is actually liking each other. This is building a friendship. Turning towards bids. Bids are ways that you're trying to get your partner's attention and connect with them. And there's passive and active bids. Active bids are like, hey, look at this thing on my phone. I think that this is really cool. So if I say that to my partner, he can either be like, oh yeah, that's really interesting, and we start engaging in a conversation, or he could just act like I didn't say anything and ignore me. Or he could say, that's really stupid, I don't want to talk about that, which is rejecting. So if you need a 5-to-1. So 5 turning towards bids to 1 rejection or ignore for things to work, for people to keep bidding for you. Because after a while, it's going to fade away. It's basic behavioral therapy. It will die out after a while. The behavior will go away. So your partner will stop bidding if you don't turn towards it. So you have to know how they bid. If they're a passive bidder, have you ever been in a conversation with people and then someone just walks up to the conversation and stands there? You don't know why they're there. They just walk up and stand there and like look at everybody. Feels kind of awkward. But that's a passive bid for connection. It's a passive bid for belonging. It's like saying, hey guys, I'm here. I kind of want to be included in the group. So just by even saying, hey Patrick, that's awesome. Yeah, you can join our circle. That's turning towards their bid. Saying, hey, yeah, you belong. It's okay. You can stand here and listen. Building a positive perspective. So this is being able to see the positive in what a partner is saying, even if you don't agree with it, even if you're not ready to hear it, being like, okay, accepting their ideas or accepting what they're saying and being like, okay, I want to understand more. Again, this is building the friendship and the relationship. Managing conflict. Whew, okay. This is a biggie for managing conflict. We actually, for this whole list, we have a 3-hour presentation because I'm like breezing through all of this. So managing conflict. How do you deal with disagreements? You're going to argue in a relationship. You're going to have conflict. If you don't have conflict, somebody's given way too much in that relationship and you're building a codependent dynamic. It is okay to disagree with people. If someone says it's not okay, they're probably not a good person to be in a relationship with. Because this is how we form new ideas. This is how we build upon things, is conflict. Now, I'm not saying conflict like we're going to go out and do domestic violence. This is like, hey, I don't agree with how you disciplined our child. Let's talk about it. But you don't talk about it in front of the child. You take that away. And I realize we only have 10 minutes or so I'm probably going to be going really fast. And after those conflicts, how do you repair? How do you apologize? How do we make this better? How do we make it good again? In creating shared meaning, what do you have together that you can create together? It could just be the relationship. And then making life dreams come true. Everybody has their own individual dreams, and you may have a dream within the relationship. Okay, how do we work for those goals to make it happen? And that's what those hour meetings are for every week. That's what the whole big, huge meeting once a year or more times a year is for, is how do we go towards these goals? Maybe one year somebody's working on their master's degree, and the next year somebody is working on making an organic farm. I don't know, whatever the goals are. And Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper said, the most damaging phrase in any language is, we've always done it this way. No, be open to new ideas. Be open to how things change. I was a police officer in the long time ago in land far, far away, way before we started having camera phones. And, a lot of things were he said, she said when we would go into reports. Now, we actually have body cams. Since, all the cell phones and stuff, we have body cams to be like, okay, this is what happened. So an objective person can listen and watch and say, okay, this did not happen. But it's a change. A lot of people would be like, oh man, no, that's going to do this, is going to do that. No, we have to be open to new ideas. We have to be open to evolving. Same thing with relationships. You have to be open to maybe something new, and it might be uncomfortable. You change when things are uncomfortable. So getting into some of the TA. So Eric Berne did transactional analysis with the 3 parenting states, which is the parent, adult, and child. The parent ego state is all of the information that you've ever gleaned from authority figures. So if someone would criticize a certain way or nurture a certain way, that gets put into your template. That gets put into what you're bringing to a relationship. I'm going to skip down to the child, which is the seat of all your emotions. It's the seat of everything that you had as a child. You know, your curiosity, your play, being rebellious, being, difficult, mad, sad, glad, and scared are in this piece. Now, the goal when you're into managing conflicts in a relationship is to be in the adult state. Because guess what? Children do not solve conflicts. You are usually in your emotions when you're angry at each other, and in a conflict, children do not solve conflicts. They throw sand, they throw toys, they sit down on the ground and go wah, wah, wah. It doesn't work. So you have to be in the adult ego state, which is the logical, non-threatening, rational problem-solving part of the ego states. And I know I'm going really fast, and I'm sorry. It's a lot to cram in. And what the transactional analysis led to in the ego states is to the dreaded drama triangle or the Cartman triangle. All of those states are on this triangle, which we went over a little bit with the rescuer, victim, and persecutor. This is an anxiety and fear-based system of saying things aren't going to get done. I'm worried that things aren't going to happen the way they need to. And if the problems do get solved, it's for a very short period of time. It's not a long-lasting problem solver. And if you're in a codependent relationship, you're going to hit all of these. You may identify with one area more than the other. But the way to get off this codependent drama triangle is to go to the adult ego state. And one of the main questions that I get is, well, how do you do that? Well, guess what? I will tell you. You go to the empowerment dynamic. This is where a shift happens. So you go from this dreaded of this, you feel like you're on this Ferris wheel of just drama over and over again. So if we go to the empowerment dynamic, we change these particular stages to meet something different. So instead of the victim, you have the creator, which this is a passion, goal-oriented way of looking at things. Is you choose your power and how to respond to it. I can do this. You're not losing your hope because you're creating it. This is what I'm going to do in X amount of years. I'm a big proponent of having long-term, intermediate, and short-term goals because these are the baby steps that you need to get what you want to do. So let's say you want a master's degree. Well, usually to get a master's degree, you have to have a bachelor's degree. And to get that, you have to have either a good enough diploma, GED, or a high school diploma. And this is the U.S. educational system. Not quite sure how it translates outside of the U.S. I know there's like primary school and university, I think, in the U.K. I think. Don't quote me. But that's the creator mentality. What are you wanting to create? And instead of the persecutor, you have challenges. You have challengers. Challenges can be either people, they can be situations, they can be things. Anything can be a challenger. So maybe if you have this pain in the ass boss that is just nagging you all the time about different things, they're challenging you. If you look at it that they're challenging you to grow, it's going to invoke action or evokes action. It's a conscious and it's a constructive change. You're choosing to do that. Just like in a relationship with your partner or partners, they can be a challenger. You're going to have to change some things for you if there's like this big issue that's happening in the relationship. You may change how you approach it. I'm not saying you'll have to change your core person, but you may have to change your approach. And it's you can do this. We can actually make this change happen. So embrace that challenger. They're what make you change and grow. They make you uncomfortable. Change doesn't happen if you're in your little comfort zone. If you're in your little warm little whoopee, change doesn't happen. You have to get outside. You have to get cold. and get stuff moving. So instead of being a rescuer or enabler, we also have the coach. The old adage of you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Coaches don't do things for you. You have to do it yourself. They can guide you. They can give you avenues. They can open a door and be like, hey, look, here's this thing. Why don't you walk through this? But they can't do it for you. Just like with my clients, I can't do the work for them. If I'm working harder than my clients, that means I'm making a very toxic dynamic. I'm enabling their shit. They have to do it. They have to do the work. Because what am I telling them? What I'm actually telling them, if I do it for them, is you are too dumb and or helpless to do it yourself. So I'm going to do it for you. That does not empower them. That does not enable them to be their own creator and go towards something that they're wanting to do. And how it translates into relationships is stop doing shit for your partners. Not, the nice, sweet honey stuff. But if they're having trouble with something, you can be there for them. You can sit and support them, but they have to do that work. You can't get them the job. They have to get their own job. They have to create their own path. So, oh yeah, I talked fast enough. Look at this, almost perfect. So, thank you so much for having me here at the Webmaster Access Conference. I've really appreciated this opportunity. If you have any questions, comments, just be kind, please. Constructive criticism, please. I'm happy to engage more. You can also email me if you want a longer question or a longer answer, or if you want to meet up or talk, feel free to contact me. And I do appreciate all of you that attended. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much for that, Nicki. I just have confirmed as well that actually the Greta and the team at WMA are actually doing translation. So if you go over to the virtual stage and go onto the live chat, hopefully that you can ask any questions there. So thanks everyone ever so much. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will look forward to your comments. Thanks. Cheerio. Bye-bye.